Jaime Weiler. I am the TRM Chief TRM Mentor. I run the TRM Gold calls every Tuesday, so I'm in charge of that. And then I also do the one-to-one coaching calls for TRM Gold and our Platinum members.
Awesome. And then Isaac Miller, I am the kind of liaison, I guess, to say. I'm another mentor under Jaime, and I help with some of the gold clients, and then I head up what's called the TRM Silver program. For it's kind of now like an accelerator into gold. So it's those coaches who are kind of still in the beginning phases or stages of establishing their business and now gaining their first traction of clients and learning how to set the foundations of their systems that way. And then they move on into the full gold program where then Jaime and Matthew and I really teach on how to scale that.
How do you take what somebody else is like teaching, and not just the X's and O's of what they're teaching, but also like what I think can get ingrained like philosophically?
Yeah. So for me personally, like when I get someone in TRM who's newer to TRM, it's one of two things. Either they've tried doing business before and failed, which many of us have been in those shoes, or they're completely new to the business. And, typically they work a 9 to 5, so they have the money to put into a business coach in order to really get this going. And so for me, it's either let's figure out what went wrong when you tried it before and see where it went wrong. And those may be areas where you were close, but applying it the wrong way. Or it was, we were just kind of running on a hamster wheel and there was never traction to begin with. The people who are new to business, it's really like they're sponge mode and they're just taking in everything. And so then once they kind of get through this accelerator program and they're ready to really go into gold and excel, I'll let Jaime lead that, but it's really just being able to expand. And I try and just teach fundamentally what Jaime has taught me as, one of my mentors, and what Matthew has taught me. And so whenever I try and teach them in this accelerator program, all I'm doing is trying to disseminate what they will learn in gold into the most basic kind of layman sense, and setting a foundation so that when they go into gold, they're not lost in the sauce and sitting on those calls with like drool coming out of their mouths. Like they're actually able to be like, oh no, I know what that means. Or, oh yeah, I've already kind of set this foundation. I can now build on it. It's not gonna, wash away. But Jaime, I would love to, I would love to know kind of what that's like after I, have someone move on, or now you have somebody who's had some business coaching. What's that like?
So it's definitely easier when they come to us, essentially from cradle to grave, right? It's the best when they just want to start training. So they get put in the silver program with Isaac because I already know what he's going to teach. I know how well he's going to teach it. And then they come in again with the expectation, like Isaac said, to just build and expand on what he's already taught them. It is slightly more difficult when you have someone who's already worked with another coaching program or has already been doing things a certain way for so long. I mean, when you think of the NFL or the NHL draft, to an extent, you want to pluck an athlete that is squishy putty. You don't want to pick up this bronzed god who's 6'1", 205% body fat, because he's already been doing something. And it's going to be a lot harder to mold that guy than the guy who's like 5'10", kind of a skinny fat 180, and build him into whatever it is you want. So similar to what Isaac said about, hey, have you been running into a wall? I noticed it's not working for you. Perhaps we can pivot. We take the same approach. If they've been doing something with another business coach that has been working well, hell, let's keep it, because clearly it's working for you. As long as you're making enough money, you still have enough time for work-life harmony, and it's not absolutely crushing your soul, we don't mind keeping it in.
And, you mentioned it there, but the time, the money, the passion for it, I think a lot of the passion can get lost when, you're doing something initially that you do love, but you can't figure it out. It's like, oh man, I see there's people on social media that are, apparently making, a lot of money doing this, and Not that, you want it to become all about the money either. So it's kind of a balance between like that side of it too. But you definitely want to be, financially successful and stable and make it a viable thing. And you want to chase your passion and you want to be rewarded for that. And
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
when people come to TRM, what are they really looking for? Do you feel like on a deeper level? I mean, like I said, there's I guess the three things there, but is there something that people typically say or like a phrase that's like, okay, yeah, this person's ready, or or some maybe on the opposite of that too? Like, do people sometimes come to TRM and that maybe they think that they want to be successful, but maybe based on something that they say or
So I think the first thing I want to go back to, Daniel, is you said you see people on social media, dot, dot, dot. I think Isaac and I will be the first ones to tell you that should not be where you get your information or your role models or your mentors from. Because if you've heard it once, you've heard it a million times. What you see on social media is a highlight reel. It is not the behind the scenes of these trainers' lives. So you might see them making money, but you don't see all of the people and relationships they've left in their wake to make those 6, 7, or even 8 figures. And you also don't see how many failed products they had to launch to make the 6, 7, and 8 figures. So right off the bat, I want to tell all the trainers listening out there, stop finding people to chase on social media because you're just not seeing the entire picture. Isaac, I will let you answer the question and then I will add to whatever else you have.
Yeah, no, I love how you said that, because we don't see the failed product. And in our industry, what's a failed product? It's a hurt person who either didn't see results or, even worse, got sick or hurt or injured and miserable because of that failed product. And sadly, we just see success and nice cars and all this stuff, and we don't see the hundreds of shattered lives that were left in that process. So it is really important for us to establish that foundation of like, who are you looking at as your models of success, and understand, really, is that something that you want? Is that the person you truly want to emulate? Now, for me, with the kind of like accelerator program, what used to be a, kind of lower tier option into TRM that helped set a foundation, what we realized, because it was a fresh program that Matthew and I had built, was that we were getting people who genuinely weren't very driven to run their businesses. Still amazing people, had the right heart, had the right, mindset, kind of, in terms of they just wanted to serve. But when it came to actually running a business, it's a different switch that you have to kind of turn on, and you have to be able to pull yourself out of the day-to-day operations. You have to pull yourself out of just doing sessions and into the mindset of an entrepreneur. And that's where there was a disconnect. So as we started to restructure silver into being an accelerator into gold, it really became like a 3-month application process. And so you have to go through this process of the accelerator program. And by the end of it, if you've actually shown up, if you've done the work, if you do the steps that we give you, you will be ready for gold. But it takes adopting that mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset, and being able to show that you can run a business as well as be a coach. And some people just don't have that. And by the end of it, we don't just say, cool, do you have the money for gold? Like, no, we don't want, like, we're not doing this for the money. We're doing this so that we can create amazing coaches in the marketplace. And so for me in this accelerator program, it's really trying to qualify these coaches and see, do they have what it takes to make it? And if they do, great, we're going to pass on amazing coaches into gold who will excel, who will, be productive members in the marketplace and have great services to bring to the table. If they're not, even if they make it through the process, but they're not that kind of mindset, that driven kind of individual who will actually follow the steps and take this entrepreneurial journey seriously, I say, sorry, but this might not be the service for you.
what I notice in gold in terms of who will be successful and who won't, in terms of keywords, time freedom. If they want more time, if they talk about their family, they're going to be a fantastic fit, because in TRM, we're not about the hustle and the grind. We're the light, hustle, light, grind, like the way 75 hard people, right? Some people do 75 soft, right? I'll get in one workout and I'm going to drink like half a gallon and that's an improvement for me. We're like that version, right? It's not ineffective. It's just not at 0 to 100 really fast. So time, when they say time instead of money, it tells us that they're going to be a good fit. And then one thing that that I've noticed is when they use always and never. I've never been good at tech. I've never been a social media person. I always mess up when I try to. That fixed mindset of using words like always and never tells me that we don't have the time or bandwidth in our program currently to chisel away at those limiting beliefs. Something has to happen in their life first, and then we can start to mold from there.
Explain a little, go into depth a little bit more along like what that actually means and what those fears are, what those lacking of skills are specifically that you see a lot of people, and not just to say it, but also maybe for people watching this to go, okay, well, how do I need to change my mindset about this, or what skills do I need to develop in order to be that person that is ready to be a business owner?
I love that. I love that question, Daniel. Thank you. So I would say a big one is to expand off of what Jaime said about like the time freedom. A lot of people, when they think like, okay, I am ready to be an entrepreneur, then they immediately hit that grind mode and they're working crazy hours all on the wrong things. They're doing everything to stay busy and nothing to be productive. They're just running on that hamster wheel, and then they burn out, and then they're doing nothing for 3 or 4 weeks. And then they're like, oh, I feel better again. Hop back on that hamster wheel and go 100 miles an hour. And then they're broken for another 3 or 4 weeks. And it's that repeating cycle. So that's one part that I see often is like they care so much about the grind and the hustle that they just want to feel like they're an entrepreneur and not actually doing the things that successful entrepreneurs do. And then the second part of that is the exact opposite, where they are so comfortable where they're at that the idea of getting out of it and replacing that with this freedom of their own business is intoxicating in its thought, but in application, they don't hold it as well as some others. And, they get 2 drinks in and they're like, oh, I'm feeling woozy, I need to go home. And so that's like, it's the same thing of, do you really want to lose the comfortability that you have? If you're okay with that, and you for lack of a better term, burn the ships, and you go all in on this business, then yes, we can help you be successful. But if you are too scared to give up that 9 to 5, which is perfectly fine, it's okay to have a normal 9 to 5 and just do this on the side because you love it. Don't feel like you have to be an entrepreneur and you have to replace this because that's what social media is telling you to do. But be very clear with the expectations of yourself. And after setting that, some people, they end up saying, I kind of do just want to keep this as a side hustle. And then we have to say, that's okay. That's perfect. We can give you the tools to help you, maintain that. And then you can go off and run that and have fun. And we're here if you ever need anything else. But it really is like figuring out, are they just the hustle and grind, like working on the wrong things? Or are they the people who are just really comfortable where they're at and just like the mental exercises of this, entrepreneurial life? At least at my level. Jaime might have a different answer to this.
No, I think the only thing that changes are the tasks, Isaac. Like that, very similar. The people who aren't going to be successful are the ones who, when I said, when was the last time you went through your database and tried to activate people for referrals or ask them how their kids were doing? They're like, I don't know. It's been like 3 weeks. I said, why haven't you touched your database in 3 weeks? Well, I thought you were going to teach me. And I was like, nope, go back to the fundamentals. You have 300 people in there from your last 2 years of business. Why would I teach you Facebook ads when you haven't touched 300 people? So yeah, Isaac, I mean, 100%. It doesn't change. It just scales.
In a world that's getting so big and so much focused around automation and technology, it's such a tricky balance between personal touch and efficiency. But in a general sense, what do you recommend in regards to finding that balance between those two things?
Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
Yeah, great question. So if you are going to repeat a task more than 2 times, I 100% believe you should automate it. So I myself have automations. Well, it's a human being, like it's a human being on one side, but she essentially automates all outbound messages to new followers on Instagram. She outbound messages, all new friend requests on Facebook to put them in our Facebook group, and then sends a message to every new Facebook group join. Now, that's essentially an automation, even if there's a human doing it, and it's always the same welcome message. However, as soon as there is now an inbound warm message, I take over. So that's how we balance, right? She's almost like a robot when it comes to, we'll call it cold traffic. But then as soon as that person responds, now it becomes warm and there's an actual human being answering the questions, getting the conversation going, nurturing the prospect on the other end of the phone. I'm curious what Isaac does and how you've found balance with, all of your TRM people.
Yeah, right. So we have this amazing tool called the TRM engine that we developed. We have an amazing tech engineer, Laurent, who developed this. We took like all of the best CRM softwares that we could think of, and Laurent just did an amazing job of just deep dive researching on the apps that made these CRMs what they were. And then he essentially built a CRM software for TRM for our members. And it's way more than a CRM. So we automate so much stuff. We can build websites on there. We can build membership sites. We can do courses. Like there's so much that you can do. And CRM doesn't do it justice. But with that, we're able to teach automations at a very high level to leverage our time. But as Jaime said, it's like the tasks that your personal face doesn't need, like it's not essential to be the face of, can be automated. And sometimes those tasks can set up the opportunity for the personal touch. For example, like coaches who, check-ins, and they find themselves chasing down their clients to do their check-ins every week. And it gets exhausting and they have to, just be tied to their phone for almost 2 days in a row, just trying to get all their clients to check in, when instead we can have an automated system that sends out a reminder with a link to the check-in form where they can go fill out the questions and upload the pictures. And then it lets the coach know that the check-in has been updated and it's in their system. So then the coach can go in and then do a Loom recording or a video note going over the check-in and the update and give that personal touch back to their client. But it's set up by the automations that we have in our system. So that's kind of how we can teach these high leverage kind of automations to set up for that personal touch. So you can spend more time thinking about that check-in and not worrying about like all the other clients that haven't checked in yet while you're trying to do this one.
Yeah. And I think giving up the, whether it be for like a computer-based automation or even another human-based automation, it can be a scary thing for a lot of people to give up that because it's like, oh, they're not going to do it the way I did it. Or, what if this happens and it sends the wrong message or any sort of kind of thing. Is there a certain level to where it's like you, not to like per se convince somebody to try it, but where it's like, okay, let's try it out with this certain thing first. Let's try to automate and just see if you like it, if it's comfortable for you. Let's start here with automation.
I think the way we get people started, so obviously in gold, I don't want to say the expectation, but the majority of people who are already in gold have the engine, because Isaac probably would have brought it to their attention in silver just to make their lives easier. We start with onboarding. So the onboarding emails that go out, because, we say, hey, isn't it kind of annoying that you have to grab the contract and the physical activity readiness questionnaire and the questionnaire you're going to send them to learn a little bit more about them so you can make their customized program, plus the actual welcome email that asks them for a photo of themselves and to invite them to your personal Facebook group and whatnot. Instead of copying and pasting that all the time, wouldn't it be awesome for like the computer for you just to move them over or tag them current client, and then that email just and a Google folder is created? And they said, yeah, that would probably be easier. And that's all we need from them. Just that one buy-in.
With silver, and again, we've transitioned now to being like a more accelerator into gold. So it's more of a blast off into these systems. Whereas originally it was like systems were completely new. So automation wasn't even in the cards yet. It was more so just teaching them how to fill out create a jot form, so that instead of trying to do a live call for an hour every week with every client, to where only 5 clients would tap them out on time every week. And they need more than that to pay bills, to take care of their families. So it's like, how about we teach you how to create a jot form? So instead of doing a live call every week, you can do a jot form that they fill out. So even if you do a live call, it's not an hour, it may be 30 minutes because you already have all their information. Or better yet, you can create a Google Doc that you can go in and see them check in live, and then do a Loom video for 5 minutes as a response to it. And if they have any questions after that, you can book a call. And there would be some nerves going into that because it is giving up a part of it. But it's kind of like that coffee shop challenge, where if you have someone who's really scared of rejection, you say, go to a coffee shop across town that you're never going to go to again and ask for a free coffee. They know they're going to get told no. But as soon as it happens, they suddenly aren't scared of it anymore. And so when these coaches, they finally do this process, and then they see, oh, the clients actually had a better response back to it. They were actually getting nervous for the 30-minute calls every week because it's a check-in with their coach. And now that they have a form and the video response back, they're actually a lot more comfortable, and their adherence to the plan has gone up, and them showing up for the check-ins or actually doing the check-ins has increased. Maybe this was better. And they start to actually trust that process more. So it's slowly phasing it in. And then same thing with Jaime. It's that slow phase into the actual engine systems, and opening their eyes to like, oh, this is way better. And I actually can offboard some of these lower leverage activities so I can focus on the things that make my coaching special and unique.
Is there that time period where people are like, they get into working with you, Isaac, and it's like, okay, obviously I kind of have a base level of trust because I hired this person and, we're in this relationship. But is there like typically like, okay, it takes one thing, or it takes a week, or it takes, whatever it may be, for this trust to actually be from person to person? And kind of on a similar note, after you're done, after they come from Isaac to you, Jaime, like, is it similar where it's like, okay, I trust TRM, and but I've been working with this other person, and so now maybe it's takes a little bit for me to like develop this, and kind of on a similar note, how do you develop those things? So I guess starting with Isaac, how do you develop that trust?
Yeah, these are great questions, Daniel. And with developing the trust, I think Matthew does a really amazing job at establishing trust from the onset, because typically like the first contact they have is with Matthew, and he's such a brilliant mind and a genuine heart. And whenever we show up on the call, we're just simply the mouthpiece of what he's taught us. And so when he establishes that trust, and then we show up and use the same seed language, the same vernacular that he would use, we teach the same things that he talks about in that first call, it's easy for them to be like, oh, this is actually a cohesive team. They're all in line with each other. I'm not going to hear one thing and then hear another and then hear another. Like, Jaime and I have very different coaching styles, but at the core of it, we're teaching the same principles, the same foundations. And so that's what makes the trust a little bit easier to gain, because they realize we're all in the same page. And it's not just Jamie and I. We have a whole team of amazing leaders. Like Matthew and I sat down and did the math. We have over 100+ years of industry experience in our leadership team. And we're all teaching the same level of stuff. And we've all seen success. We all have actually walked the walk. So we can show like the years of industry experience and how this system has accelerated that. And so that trust is almost seamless. And it's not by anything I do, it's by what TRM has done itself and what Matthew establishes in that first call.
So I 100% agree with Isaac that it's similar when, Isaac and I hop on, let's say, a sales call with a prospect, and while they might not be a fit for us, we'll hand them over to an assistant coach. There's very rarely any pushback because there's so much buy-in for who Isaac and I are that they're like, yeah, I'd go with like Big Bird if you said that he'd be the best fit for me. Matthew is the same. If Matthew said, listen, you're going to thrive under Isaac and Silver, or man, I think given what you're making and where you're at in your business, you'd be the best fit for gold. They're like, yes, sir, whatever you need. And I do think it is so much easier to have that trust when they come from Isaac into gold. So, because again, cradle to grave, they already understand, they know the TRM logo. They've seen the leaders' faces before. They had their calls with Matthew. That seeing me is just like, comfortable, right? All you've done is gone from like elementary school to junior high or whatever the next phase is. So it's not hard to get that buy-in. It is slightly tougher when they've come from another coach. And I think that's actually where we get the most people who leave the program prematurely, is if they came from not silver, jumped into gold and was like, hey, I'm going to try this, or even came into platinum not from gold, which is our next level. That is where it's harder to build trust. Different coaching styles come into play.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Isaac.
So for me, as a coach, like not as a business coach, but as a coach, I'm a very, I was on the research side of the industry for a long time. So I love like research data. And so I try and bring that into it and try and like get them to answer their own, maybe not false beliefs, but preconceived notions. So like, say, for example, we have a client who had a business coach who really focused on paid advertising. And whereas we know that there is, a time and place for paid marketing and paid advertising, what might be more important right now is organic lead generation without having to pay a lot of money. So we go in and they're just like, oh, well, why would I do all of this organic reach out when I can just put money into ads and get all these ads coming in? And so for me, I have to say, okay, do you mind, like, just curious, if we go through your KPIs in the past and see how much you were spending per click and how many of those actually became clients? Oh, it's 1%. Okay, just that's fine. That's just the answer. It's the data that I'm not judging. Here's a similar coach that I've worked with who had less following, less reach, and less like stability. They worked their much lower, smaller database for 2 weeks, and they gained 30% more than that 1%. So just curious, would it make sense if maybe we just tried this for a little bit and see if the KPIs work? And if it doesn't, by all means, put another, few $100s into paid ads and tell me where to shove it. Like, that's fine. But does it make sense to you? And at that point, they can be like, it does make sense. But it has to be like their idea, at least for me, because sometimes having those, I was a Marine for 6 years. And so if I have a tough conversation, I can tend to be, I go too far. I go across that line. So I've really trained myself to try and not even push that line because I get too brash sometimes. So I make sure to really try and step back and try and get them to have it be their idea. Whereas like some people are a lot more skilled at kind of establishing that line and having those conversations. Whereas me, I like to kind of get them to bring it out themselves.
for the person that isn't really great at reaching out to their own audience, how do you go from nothing to not wanting to overwhelm people, but trying to introduce this idea of, hey, we're going to start reaching out to you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it almost comes back to what Isaac said and how he essentially motivationally interviews people. He gets them to the answer he knows is correct, but he lets them get there themselves. So the question is, is what you're doing by not reaching out to anyone and kind of being nervous to do outbound messaging, is that serving you? Is that bringing new people into your ecosystem? I'm just curious. Oh, okay. It's not. Gotcha. Okay. Do you think maybe it's something we could try? Maybe we'll start with email newsletters, right? 33% of people open them. So similar to Isaac's coffee shop, you're probably going to be told no when you send out an email newsletter. But hey, we wrote one, we did it. You practiced copywriting. Maybe you got a little more comfortable with it. Maybe you absolutely hated it. Cool. If you absolutely hated it, let's pivot to copywriting for Instagram or even Threads or Twitter or X. There are so many different avenues whereby if you try on one pair of pants and they don't fit, let's put on another pair, or let's try a different store altogether. But the answer really comes down to, you have to do something. You cannot just avoid doing the work, right? You cannot just make reels all day and cross your fingers that something's going to go viral. You have to put the work in. Essentially, what we do is you should get sick of hearing yourself talk about the same things. If you're not bored of hearing the same 3 pain points over and over and over again on your Instagram, on your TikTok, then you haven't spoken about them enough. If I have to mention anxiety, overwhelm, stress, fat loss, or relationship goals one more time, but here I am, and we're still growing Filer Fitness, right? So, we encourage people to come up with 3 pain points, which we also refer to as milestones, right? What are the 3 biggest things that the people who come to you are struggling with? Amazing. Now you're going to become an expert in 3 solutions to each of those 3 problems. And that is going to be the premise of everything you post on social media. Every once in a while, you're going to sprinkle in photos of your wife, your dog, your kids, your farm, you training, and a client testimonial. But other than that, again, the world's most boring merry-go-round of 3 pain points and 3 solutions to each pain point.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
I always tell people, you can watch Squat University, like Dr. Aaron Horschig, post every day about feet and about the toe box on your shoe every day. Do you unfollow him? No, because he's smart and you hang on to every post he puts. So why are we judging ourselves for something that we're not judging other people for? Like it's just a self-imposed kind of view of what other people will think, even though we don't even think that when other people post the same things. And so and I also have to remind people too, the algorithm, especially if you're not someone who's already predisposed to going viral a lot, because like a lot of like the silver members newer to social media, they have like maybe 2,000 followers on like every once in a while. And so it's like, hey, realize that your post is only really even being seen by maybe 20% of your following base, plus another maybe 20% outside of that. So that's like on a good day. So if you post the same thing 3 days in a row, you're going to get different followers if you're seeing it every day. And that's out of your control, completely out of your control. So if that's the case, if 1 in 3 people aren't even seeing your post, why wouldn't you repeat the same pain point next week? And to be honest, I don't even remember what I posted last week, much less what you posted last week. So if you posted the same thing next Monday, I'm not going to remember. So don't worry about that. Worry more about saying the same thing. So eventually someone understands, oh, Jamie's the girl who talks about LGBTQ with anxiety and depression and fitness and how that can help. It might take them 3 months to get that association in. in their brain. So like it makes sense that you would have to repeat yourself a few times, and a few is an understatement. And so that's something that I try and really hammer in for the silver people. And then also understanding your analytics, because we do have some people who like come from fitness modeling space or, you know, competing. And so they have this like, well, I have to do what's going to get me followers because they care about the followers. But what gets you followers might not be what gets you customers. And so are you using social media as a tool to get attention or a tool to get consumers? And that's two different things. So it's understanding your analytics. Like if you have a bikini competitor post a lot of bikini pictures and stuff like that, and they're wondering, why can't I get a lot of, you know, customers? Why aren't I getting a lot of, you know, links in my bio and like actually getting my drop form to a consult filled out? Well, maybe it's because 80% of your followers are men between the ages of 18 and 35. Not your ideal demographic. So they're not going to try for coaching. But if we change up your like posts to actually going after the pain points, as Jaime talked about, run that for a few weeks, see what happens. And Jaime can even, you know, give a case study example of how this actually applied in real time and how it actually completely overhauled someone's business.
Is it Amanda? Are we talking about Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So Amanda's a great example. She is also one of our leaders in TRM, and she was thriving, but we had, I want to say, a 65-35 split, 65 women, 35 men. And I was coaching her weekly at the time. And like Isaac said, I mean, she is a gorgeous blonde fitness model who also has a ton of brilliance and empathy and kindness inside of her, and a fantastic program with AJF Studios, but the booty shots. And slowly we had to transition away, and she started making these really fun reels and incorporating her executive assistant and her assistant coaches and doing photo shoots with the other women and talking about period and hormone things that would turn men off, but were applicable to the pain points of the women she was targeting. And I believe we're at like 82-18 now. And I'm so okay with that. But yeah, had we not seen the 65-35 when we started, we wouldn't have known that that's what wasn't working. Continuity, right? And I think this goes back to what Isaac says about people expect to see it after a certain period of time. They know what they're getting with you. So if we're going to use the mental health example, you know, typically my three, they're not proprietary, but like what Filer Fitness uses in terms of anxiety is accountability, breath work, meditation, and fitness, obviously. So at some point, those are 4 solutions. They will inevitably pop up over the course of 30 days. You will see how to use meditation for anxiety, accountability for anxiety, fitness, breath work. Journaling will pop up every once in a while. Cold plunge will pop up every once in a while. But also remember, I also have 2 other pain points. So you're only going to see that cold plunge once every 30 days because I'm going to move on to fat loss and fitness, and why intermittent fasting and keto aren't the answers, right? So again, over the course of, you have to take an aerial view, and over the course of 30 days, you're never getting deeper than surface level, because I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not going to talk about EMDR or, oh my God, hypnotherapy, way beyond my scope. But I can very well say cold plunging mimics an anxiety attack. So once you've already had one today, you likely won't get another. And I can stop there.
And maybe this is more for Isaac, but is this something you typically find that people are more along the lines of too vague when they come to you, or too narrow when they come to you?
There's no such thing as too narrow. And I say that because if the more narrow you get, if you are taking your continuing education seriously, which is something that we talk about often in TRM, then you learn more within that narrow niche. And so then you get more depth that you can talk about. So as you might work with like a homeopathic coach who really understands labs and blood work, that's very niche for a general coach. But that specific coach can talk about so many different lab breakdowns and the corrections to each lab and supplements that help for each specific thing, that it could take months for them to actually get through an entire cycle of content. So what some people think is niche, another thinks is too broad, because they know so much within that niche. So oftentimes I get people who are too broad. Now, I would say the difference between like me and Jamie is really good at helping people take like once they're comfortable posting and getting out, now she really helps them bring in calls to action and using it as a business tool to get booked, like get calls booked and consultations. Whereas mine typically are step back from that and they're just trying to understand like how to post consistently and what to talk about. And so this is where I like to have my people not focus on it as a lead generation tool. It's a problem solving tool. So talk to your clients on your social media. You don't have to call them out specifically, but if you had a conversation with Sherry the other day because she's not understanding what to eat at the grocery store, like what to buy, then make a post saying, here's 3 things that I think every person should buy when they're planning to meal prep at the grocery store. And you make that post and you're going to speak to Sherry, like she's going to watch that and be like, oh, wow, that reminds me of my conversation that I had. And then 10 people just like Sherry are going to watch that and say, that resonates with me. I'm going to follow him because that's really smart. And they follow. And then after they get used to that cycle, they move on to a coach like Jamie, who then can help them almost like not weaponize it, but actually use it as a tool to now say, hey, Sherry's, like all 10 of you, you've gained like good value from this. Imagine what you could do if you actually came into our services and allowed us to help you implement these now. And so that's where we see this progression from like a newer to, so not even a newer coach, but just newer to using social media as a business tool and not a consumerism tool. And then being able to grow that into something that can have calls to action that brings paying clients to their ecosystem.
Well, I mean, how do you do that effectively, Jamie, in regards to like sharing information and then also wanting to, um, I guess like go for the sell, if you want to call it that, like try to get this person on board, try to like get this person interested or, whatever kind of that next step would be. Like, how do you do that in a way that doesn't create like a sense of like, oh wow, that's it's kind of a weird thing now because I said maybe, or maybe you think it's going to be weird, I guess, more than anything as a coach, that maybe it's actually not going to be weird if that person says no thank you, not right now, or like, so I guess how do you do that in a way that is maybe authentic isn't the best word, but like is a good experience for that person you're trying to attract?
Yeah. So it goes back to, I make sure that essentially what Isaac taught them, they are currently doing, or if they're coming into gold before doing silver, they have familiarity with posting to educate and deliver value, because you do not have a right to ask for anything, whether it's someone's email, phone number, comment below, share with your friends, until you've given enough first, right? Like sometimes it's weird to ask a friend for a favor unless they kind of owe you one, right? So we make sure, and Isaac explained this perfectly, we make sure that all of our coaches jab, 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 right hook, like deliver value, deliver value, deliver value, solving problems, take my free resource, download my free ebook, go have my cheat sheet about sleep hygiene. Okay, 9 posts later, maybe I'll say, comment below if you're interested in joining the inner outer strength system. Or we can do, a deliver value, right? Here's one hack to, right? Go cold plunge if you want to stop an anxiety attack in its tracks. Comment below, freezing head emoji for my 3 other anxiety hacks. And then you have 10 people who comment the freezing head. You collect their emails, you send them right away your 3 other anxiety attacks. They're now in your ecosystem. They're now loyal to you because you've delivered value. You promised on what you said and now you have the right to send them your email newsletter, which will also hopefully deliver value and ask for a sale.
I think what gets in the way a lot of times is this fear that a lot of people have of being salesy or even just like seeing themselves as a salesperson, because they don't see themselves as that. They see themselves as like this fitness, person. They love this, they love health, and they love helping people. And so is there ever that sense of like, maybe this is even more for you, Isaac, that you have to like convince this person of their own self-worth maybe is that maybe is that the right word? Like, okay, you can help this person, and maybe like you even owe it to them to try to help this person. Like what do you do when that person isn't as confident?
Getting them used to posting and having knowledgeable content, like stuff that actually solves pain points per se. Instead of just pointing out the pains, you're actually bringing solutions to the pains. It's kind of like it doubles as exposure therapy. They're getting used to actually posting, and they're going to at some point hit a time where they're getting people commenting. And a lot of what I do is having a lot of the silver people follow each other. And I try and get them to comment and like each other's posts. Because one, they all live in other areas. There's so many, there's so many fish in the sea. We're not going to hurt each other's business. At least go help each other out. It doesn't mean you have to share the other person's story all the time, but go comment and like their posts. And so they're doing it out of just like a camaraderie, kind of like, I'm going to go support someone else. But what they're also doing is getting that other person used to seeing comments, used to seeing engagement on their posts. And over time, that becomes kind of it desensitizes them from the shock of like, oh, there's attention on me. And so eventually we were like, all right, are you actually commenting back to these people? All right, out of the ones that comment, are you DMing them right after saying, hey, thank you for, showing some love on my post. I appreciate it. And it doesn't have to be this sale. And this goes into every time. The first thing I do is work out kind of a script. And we're not typically big on scripts, but I do like to work out a script for whenever someone gets a new follower. And it's not, hey, so-and-so, thanks for the follow. If you need help with your fitness journey, shoot me a message and I'll get you on my, no, like that's not it. We're not selling. Send them a, hey, thank you for the follow. Like it genuinely means a lot to me because it does. It helps our algorithm if, we get more followers. So be thankful for that. And just ask them, like, just curious, what brought you to my page? You're not selling anything. You're just starting a conversation. If they don't respond, okay, so what? They didn't respond. They still follow you, right? Like that's still a win. And if they do respond, you just start a conversation with probably a pretty cool person. So see where it goes. And after they do that a few times, they get really comfortable to the idea of social interaction on social media. And so that's what I do to kind of start this exposure process. So when they go to Jaime, there's not a lot of this like tension and fighting it, though I'm sure it still happens a lot because there are a lot of people that just go straight into gold. So it's probably a different process for Jaime. And again, I do this as a very layman social media person. I'm not a social media guru, so I just kind of do what worked for me when I had that anxiety about it. So I'm not sure if Jaime's answer would be maybe a little bit more tactical than just kind of that slow approach.
I know, Isaac. I think that again, everything you do in gold, we just do it bigger because the audience is bigger. The revenue potential is bigger. The scalability is bigger. So again, instead of, you might have people, let's say do 5 reach outs a day. We ask for 15. You might have them make 1 post a week so that they're comfortable with social media. We have 3 posts a week and they have to do 1 story per day where they're talking. So it's really not that different. We throw them into the swimming pool and say, listen, you got to tread water. This is how you develop, right? Like, oh my gosh, one of my favorite analogies for any sort of struggle is the way that a butterfly strengthens its wings is by punching the shit out of that cocoon in order to bust through it. So you need to be inside that cocoon, like fighting your own little battle in order for you to be able to fly once you're no longer with us. So I don't care if you're uncomfortable listening to the sound of your own voice or seeing your face on camera. You're gonna make a reel of you speaking by the time you're done TRM Gold.
I would love to like kind of finish out the episode with both of you sharing what you feel like makes TRM special and unique in this big, industry of fitness and consulting as well.
It's 2 things, and they kind of breathe into each other. But the first one is our team. We have an amazing team. It's not just one person that has a coaching program and is like, hire me and I'll get you your first 10K in 10 days kind of thing. Like, no, like we have a team that has cumulatively over 100 years of industry experience. I mean, we have authors on our, panel of leaders. We have industry leading coaches. We have gym owners that are doing, thriving in gyms with multiple locations. Like we have Jaime, who has had a very successful career in a niched, like a very specific niche. I myself have been a TRM client. Jaime was a TRM client, started, just immigrating over from Canada and completely starting over. I was just out of the military, completely starting over, and went through this process to a very successful, career as a coach. And so now, having this team of people is great, but us having this team also allows Matthew and our core team, Jaime, myself, Laurent, Tanny, who heads up our operations, like we're able to continue to stay in our zone of genius and innovate and stay on the cutting edge tip of this industry, so that we can always be changing the curriculum, updating what we teach and what we do and what we know and the systems that we have, so that we can always be bringing fresh knowledge and perspectives to our coaches, so that we're never giving, day old bread. Like we're always giving that fresh, like what's coming up, what should we expect, so that, our coaches are always staying at the top of the game.
I would say what makes us different, in addition to Isaac's ideas, is similar to, bringing this conversation full circle, is we don't push the revenue. We don't push hustle. We don't push grind. We don't make it mandatory to work 50 hours a week. We make it mandatory. In fact, I just gave a training today on TRM Gold about recharging, and that recharging should be 10% of however many hours you're working in total. So if you have a 50-hour work week, 5 of those hours need to be devoted to nothing and fun and play. And I don't know a whole lot of other business mentorships that essentially make play mandatory as part of your time audit. And I love that about us.
I think it's really cool that, the TRM is out here. It's helping people. It's helped people, and it will continue to help people. And I'm, really glad to be a part of it. And I appreciate both of you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us, Daniel.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Daniel.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.